Good afternoon. My name is Dave Babson. I'm a member of the Save the Scenic Santa Ritas, and we want to welcome all of you here today. I want to thank the POA board who has supported this presentation today, and the Democratic Club for reaching out and advertising what's happening. Also to Bill Foraker and Ben Craig for all the work that they did with the unit reps in terms of getting the word out. We really appreciate it. I want to give you a little background in terms of what's happening back here in the Santa Ritas. Can you all hear me okay? Beginning about 2010, Augusta Resources, a Canadian mining company, began the process of obtaining the necessary permits to build the Rosemont mine, which was a 1 mile wide, half-mile deep, open pit mine on the east side of the Santa Ritas to mine for copper. The Save the Scenic Santa Ritas, now refer to them now as SSSR, members, partners, mining experts, geologists, hydrologists, a legal team, all spent considerable time and expense over the years in fighting Augusta Resources in both state and federal courts. One of those SSR members is with us today, and I'd like to recognize John Cosma. Where are you, John?
Here we are.
John spent considerable time and effort on this whole project, and he's just retired from the board of SSSR. So, job well done.
Thank you.
In 2014, Augusta Resources was acquired by HudBay Minerals, another Canadian mining company. And they began exploring mining opportunities on the west side of the Santa Ritas, on our side, and developing plans for what would become known as the CopperWorld Rosemont Mine Complex. In 2019, the federal courts ruled against the Rosemont mine, and then in 2022, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals upheld that ruling. However, HudBay continued on with their plans in a methodical fashion to mine on the west side, and they also had a plan to incorporate, and do have a plan to incorporate the Rosemont mine on the east side. In February, I attended a hearing sponsored by the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality and learned how massive this complex could be in terms of the number of open pit mines, the huge waste tailings, water issues, and the location of the mines. And Rob is going to go through this whole process, and he will show you aerial photos that depict exactly where the mines will go. So Rob and I met with the POA board to give them an overview of the complex, and they recommended that we make the presentation today. This is a very critical time There are lots of issues on the table relative to what's happening there, and Rob is going to take you through the whole picture. I hope that after you hear this presentation, that you will reach out to some of your neighbors who may not even recognize what's happening. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce Rob Peters. Rob is Executive Director of Save and Scenic Santa Ritas. So Rob, welcome.
Hello everyone, how is this volume? Is it good? Okay, usually I just shout really loud. Well, we'll try to be more relaxed with the mic today. It's really energizing to see so many of you guys turn out. Thanks to Dave and everyone else who made this possible today. I am going to try to share with you the latest information on what's going on with the mine. As Dave said, contrary to what many of your neighbors probably believe, and maybe even some of you hope, the mine is not dead. The mine, it's sort of vampire-like. We've done a good job over the last 30 years, our little group battling the mine of driving a stake through repeatedly, and then comes back to life. And I'll circle around and talk a little bit about this win in the courts that Dave was talking about in 2022, that we thought, all right, they got to put their tails between their legs and go home, but no, they came up with another devilish plan, which we're doing our best to put obstacles in their way. But so I'll recap some of that for you in a bit. So really, one of our main strategies is getting the word out and getting people like you activated. There's a number of little kind of pods of people in some of the communities right now. There's a super active group in Corona de Tucson, and as you'll see, I'll show you a picture and you'll realize why they're super activated. So everybody always asks me sometime in the presentation and at the end of the presentation, what can we all do? And I'll come back to a slide at the end and I'll recap them, but one of the most critical things is to reach out to folks. If you've got an opportunity to talk with people, say, you know about it, here's what I learned in this meeting. And I'm going to try to give you the information today that you need to push back on some of the misinformation that's out there, because HudBay does a great job of getting out misinformation. And we're going to focus particularly in a little bit on some of the economic misinformation that's put out there about how great this mine would be for the economy in our area, which is absolutely not true. It would be devastating for the economy in our area. So I'll come back to that. I just wanted to start by showing you our website. So you can find all kinds of information there. And we just redesigned it. Oh, there's me. Bye, George. Of course, I maintain the website, so I put lots of photos of me on the website. My wife made fun of this photo for obvious reasons. There you are, pontificating again. But we have arranged it sort of like if you went to CNN or New York Times or something like that, you would be seeing sort of the latest news from top to bottom with links to the actual articles. So this is a great place to go to get the latest information on the mine in a relatively easily digestible way. And also, let's see. I want to go up, and I want to go over to here. If you go to either volunteer or get involved, you'll find lots of things that you can do, ways to get information. And like right now, and I'll come back to this again, we're still encouraging people way down in the bottom left here to write letters opposing what's called on the Senate side the Cortez-Masto bill. It's, I'm going to come back to that as well. So anyway, I just wanted to tell you that that's where you can go to get the latest information. I'm also always happy to respond to folks. If you want to reach out to me by email or even phone. And we just have a new halftime outreach coordinator, which is really exciting. So there's somebody else who can talk to you as well, not only me. Come on, little guy. Oh, let's see, you're doing something like slideshow from the beginning. And why is it not slideshow? Slideshow, yes. From the beginning. Slideshow. Okay, there we are. And my wife got me into jazzercise about 5 years ago. If you guys know that holdover from the 80s when all the women were doing it, they had headbands and leg warmers. But it keeps me pretty agile. Okay, so our group, Save the Scenic Santa Ritas, we were founded in 1996. So there are people like John Cosma that have been involved in this fight for 20 or 30 years and have done an amazing job so far. There's no mine. But this year in particular, this year and next year are absolutely critical times. And we've got a lot of things that we're doing. We're, like, for instance, we're involved in a lawsuit right now against the Arizona State Land Department. But the mine is really pushing hard right now, so this is a critical time to make change. So we're a 501c3, we take donations. HudBay, boo, is a Canadian-based mining company. So we have this crazy mining law in the US that was passed in 1872 as part of opening up the West. And it essentially says that the highest, most appropriate use of any of our national lands, so national forest, BLM, whatever, is mining. So, and the law was written for citizens only, but what's happened is that these foreign companies come in from particularly Canada and Australia, and they set up a US subsidiary, and then the US subsidiary holds the mining claims, and they just roll through. So it doesn't, like, for instance, the mine we're talking about here in the Santa Ritas, it would sit right on top of a really important section of the Arizona Trail that is heavily used, that goes right through the Rosemont Valley, that gorgeous valley you see out that Helvetia look off of 83. I see people nodding their heads. And that whole valley would be, if they have their way, filled up with toxic mine tailings. So HudBay in particular has a really bad reputation for, among other things, mistreating local people. In Peru, their head of security actually was convicted, pled guilty to murdering an indigenous anti-mine activist. And so, and if you, there's this movie, Flim Flam, which chronicles a lot of that. It was made about 10 years ago by John Doherty, who's a wonderful investigative reporter. And it chronicles a lot of that stuff that was going on both in Peru and in Canada. And if you go to our website, you can find a link to this. It's on YouTube, but you can find a link right now, right near the top of the page on the home page. And watch that movie. It'll, you know, it'll do a lot to. I think of it as a vaccination for people who are prone to think that HudBay is really here to build up our economy and do great things for our communities. This will show you who HudBay really is. I just put this in for the irony. The preliminary economic assessment is, HudBay released that in 2022. It basically had their mine plan in, and the cover is this beautiful vision of the Santa Rita Mountains that they're going to destroy. So I thought, okay, that was working. The mine is primarily going to be a copper mine. The east side pit that Dave was talking about, that is what was originally under Augusta Resources planned to be the Rosemont mine. They're still planning to dig there, but because of the court win we had in 2022, they can't get access to all the Forest Service land there, so it's going to be a somewhat smaller footprint for the moment, although they're trying to connive with certain representatives in Congress and senators to pass a terrifying law that would give them access to those lands again. So the east side pit's going to be big, more than a mile wide, half a mile deep, as I just said, visible from Scenic. From Scenic's Highway 83, there are going to be 3 west side pits, each over a mile in diameter, 520 feet deep. So you would all see those from here. Here's where those pits are going to be kind of over in here, and that's the marble quarry. 7.9 miles to where you guys live. So straight shot. This is their mine plan. I'm just gonna, I used to have a boss that always said, this is more to impress than to inform. You know, that's sort of what this is. There's a lot of stuff on it. It looks impressive, but basically what it is saying is down here is the ridgeline sort of runs like this. Down here is the what was the old Rosamond area. And then here they're going to be putting some other pits. And this is what we call the F parcel for obvious reasons. And they're going to be dumping tailings, toxic tailings there, hundreds of feet tall, which is a very fine dust that will blow in the wind. And they have a plan, you know, to spray it with stuff to try to keep it from blowing, but it will blow. And then this also, this parcel they want to put tailings on, and that parcel nudges up to Corona de Tucson, and it's actually the closest house to where they're going to put the tailings there would be about 480 feet away from the tailings, as well as very, very close to the Copper Ridge Elementary School. And I'll show you a map of that. Now, I just heard this week that they may have temporarily dropped the plans for this, probably to, I don't know, I would just be surmising, maybe to decrease community opposition for the moment, but I don't really know what's going on with that. But all along in their published plans, that has been part of what they're going to do. So this just sort of shows what, this is in year 15. They would have finished a lot of the mining, particularly on the west side. These west side deposits are pretty small. There's relatively little copper there. This is where all the real money is. But, you know, they do that, and then this is showing tailings piles in here. And let's see, we'll skip over that. Just to show you size, this is something from like 10 years ago that Arizona Daily Star put together, but it's still valid. It shows the size of that Rosemont pit in this case, compared to the skyline of Tucson, and there's a mountain. So you can get a sense of how big that pit is. These are a couple projections, renderings that were done by a wonderfully talented fellow named Robert Gay, who's associated with PARA, which is the Patagonia Area Resource Alliance. And they are fighting their own battle against a company called South 32, primarily in the Patagonians. That company is Australian. They're planning to do exactly the same thing there that HudBay wants to do, our mountain right here. This is what the west side would look like. Tailing piles. This is after there's one of the pits. This is what the east side would look like. There's the sort of Rosamond pit. And there's another projection of what the east side would, the east side would look like. This is what the west side, if you've noticed, this is what it looks like right now. All of this was done in the last about year and a half. These are all drill pads where they were drilling to sample the copper, and then spider web of connecting roads. So I'm going to try to debunk here a little bit some of HudBay's assertions. So one of them that you'll hear a lot, we've got to make this transition to green energy, which is 100% true. I actually started much of my career I spent as an expert on how global warming will affect natural ecosystems, fish and wildlife, forests. So I'm very aware of the need for the transition to green energy. However, copper is not currently a critical element in short supply. And the U.S. Geological Survey has the responsibility under law to maintain a list, and they update it every year, of minerals that are considered critical. So those are minerals that are essential for some aspects of our economy or defense, and which we don't have stable, assured supplies of in enough quantity. So it could be like minerals, typically rare minerals that are produced primarily by China would tend to be identified as critical because we can't, assume that we're going to get continued supplies from China. So, but copper was not listed, and in fact, Cinnamon and some others wrote a letter to the head of USGS saying, please add copper. And he wrote a letter back saying, no, it's not a critical mineral, it doesn't meet the criteria, so we're not going to add it to the list. And the reason that HudBay and their supporters push for this is that there are tax breaks associated with that listing. So they're really pushing for that. The U.S. Department of Energy has their own list. But in their list, they do have copper in the document, but it is not. So in their analysis, they list it as not critical in either the short term or the midterm, and they don't make any projections for any of the chemicals in the long term. So, I think if people say to you, oh, if they've swallowed some of what HudBay says and say, oh, we've got to sacrifice the Santa Ritas because we're in desperate need of copper for the green energy transition, that is not true. HudBay has the job argument. They claim they're going to create 430 direct jobs. We have no reason to believe that's not true. Then they say there'll be 300,000 secondary jobs. We believe that's unrealistic. But even if we accept all of that and we say, okay, we're going to accept that there are 3,430 jobs produced by the mine, at most these will add a few tenths of a percent to the local job market. At this point, I want to grab this. So at the moment, this is the only copy in existence of our new economic report, soon to be released, I hope within a week or two. It's at the printer right now. And our organization dug down into our pocketbook, and we paid some top-flight economic consultants to take a look at how this mine would affect the Pima County economy. Because, we're hearing, wow, this is all great, and what will the real effects be on the economy? So we have this report, and it essentially says the effects overall on the economy will be devastating. Part of the reason is that, I could be getting ahead of my slides. Let me jump ahead for a second. I'll go back here. Oops. Sorry guys, I'm making y'all seasick. It's not quite doing what I wanted. There we go. Anyway, so one of the things is that maybe some of you guys fit into this group of people, but half of the Pima County, Greater Tucson area economy is from non-labor income. So that's retirement savings, it's investments, and there's 5,000 people on average move to Pima County every year. And they're coming here predominantly for the amenities, for outdoor recreation, beautiful weather, beautiful scenery. And so one of the things that this economics report really underscored was if you lose those amenities, if you lose those viewscapes, if people are all of a sudden worried about toxic dust blowing off these tailing piles, then bad things happen to the economy. Another sort of rebuttal of this idea about jobs is that there's no reason to think, even if the mine starts up and they actually have 430 direct jobs, and then, I didn't really explain these, but these secondary jobs, they're like the guy who pumps the gas and the person that rents the apartment and all that sort of thing. So even if that number is accurate, that would depend on a high enough copper price to sustain the mine going forward. And right now we're looking at a minimum a 20-year lifespan for the mine, but how long could it do that? So this is one of the graphs in our report, and it shows from 1990 to 2022, copper has been all over the place. And generally it's been higher recently, but if you just take that decade from 2010 on, only about 50% of the time has it been above this red line. And what's this red line? This red line is taken from HudBay's own plan. And it says, in order for HudBay to be economically viable, they've got to have world copper prices above that red line. So you can see this sort of calls into question whether, whether those jobs are going to be there all the time. Because typically what happens when the copper prices drop below the break-even point, then the mine either dramatically scales down, or if it happens too long, they might shut down. So what are some of the losses? Significant hits to outdoor recreation and tourism. These are major economic drivers, way, way bigger for our economy here in Pima County than mining. There was a study done, this is an old study back in the 90s, but what they did was look at the loss in property values caused by the existence of the Sarco mine, the mines there on the edge of Green Valley, and they calculated that the overall drop in property values due to the mine was, in 2022 dollars, was about $30,000. So, and if we kind of, there's a little bit of hand waving involved here. The Economist reviewed a whole bunch of studies on trying to understand the effects of mining on property values. So there's, depending on which study you look at, there's a pretty big range, but they looked at, they concluded that it's possible that the mine would cause a drop in Pima County of between $355 million and almost $2 billion. And then just in Corona de Tucson, which would be right next to the mine and those tailing piles, something like $100 million decrease in property values. So it's likely the closer you are to the mine, the bigger the hit your house would take. So I did jump myself ahead. This is what I already talked about. 5,000 people move to Pima County every year, and which computes to, over the 20-year span of the mine, 128,000 people could move here. But, and then The Economist calculated that if only 2.7% of these 128,000 people go, you know what, I don't think I'm going to buy a house right next to the mine. Maybe I'll go live in South Florida. I don't know that's much better, but I'm going to go live somewhere else, because remember, most of these are people that have movable money, right? Their income is not tied to jobs. So they could presumably live pretty much everywhere, and they choose to live in Pima County because it's a great place to live. But it wouldn't take very many, 2.7%, the 2.7% of those people go, no, I'm not moving to Pima County because I don't want to live next to a mine. That would offset all of those jobs from HudBay. What are some of these effects that would be sort of reverberate through the economy in general and home prices in particular? One is going to be lost natural vistas and wildlife. A lot of you guys probably know we're really a world mecca here in the Sky Islands and the Patagonias and the Santa Ritas for bird tourism, among other things. There's like, my wife and I were doing Airbnb for a bit, and we go, oh, more birders showing up in their Abercrombie and Fitch outfits, with the hats, and we go, oh, birders. Birders from Belgium, okay. So that would be one loss. Another big issue that will affect quality of life and possibly safety is truck traffic. There's going to be at least 100 trucks a day hauling copper concentrate that is going to go to international markets. And then according to their plan, after year 5, they're going to start refining some of the copper on site, and they'll be producing lots of sulfuric acid. And these will be rumbling from the mine over here, northwest through the Santa Rita Experimental Range, which is sort of like a natural preserve, go right by Sal Rita Highlands, up to Sonoita, and then over here, and most likely, they don't say where they're going exactly, but most likely down here to Mexico. Their goal, and this is sort of another thing that you used to push back on people and say, oh, this is going to be so great, we need this for the U.S. economy. At least in the first 4 years, they have no plans at all to refine copper here in the U.S., so no finished copper will be produced. It's called copper concentrate. It's sort of a somewhat refined ore, ground up, and that will all be headed out to almost certainly China. China's the sort of world center for refining. This is a truck. The movie, John Doherty's movie, the Flim Flam movie, has several great pictures like this that he got in around the HudBay mines in Latin America of overturned trucks. So just to say, you know, sometimes trucks do bad things. So this is copper concentrate, and that's a truck near the HudBay's Constancia mine. Toxic tailings. So tailings are like, it's what you get after they do the refining on site. It's really, really fine dust. It's got lots of toxic in it. It's got lead in it. It's got selenium in it. It's got arsenic in it. In your guys' case, during parts of the year, winds will blow from those tailing piles 7+ miles away from you. The folks in Corona de Tucson, I think, have real reason to be worried. And typically these, I'm looking to see any children, I don't see any children. Typically these toxins are more dangerous for children, like lead, you guys probably all know. During developing, lead's really bad for the developing nervous system. They're going to make these like hundreds of feet tall mountains of this tailings dust. How did they get it to where they're going to dump it, like next to Corona de Tucson? They mix the dust with water and they send it through a big pipeline. And that's sort of what a pile of tailings looks like. This is, again, this is a projection by Robert Gay, a little bit of different picture showing these are 2 of their proposed dumping sites. This is the purple is a conservation area, and then these are houses in Corona de Tucson, and there's the Copper Ridge Elementary School. Pretty close. And studies from around the world, I read some reviews of copper mining, the tailings dust, how it travels around throughout the world, and it typically blows 20 to 30 miles in arid climates like we have. In 2022, I read a study where they looked at 102 copper mining sites worldwide, and they found a pattern of soil contamination, including arsenic, lead, cadmium, with much more higher what they call the hazard index for children, which is partly greater sensitivity, but also the fact that children play in the dirt and put their fingers in their mouths, and they're more likely to pick it up. And I found, when I read this one, I went, oh my goodness, because this was actually done with Arizona mine tailings, and they took young mice and they just put them in cages and blew tailings dust in at them, and they had serious lung problems, and the effects were even observed in utero when the mother breathed the dust. So the young mice that were born had these problems with lung function as a result of their moms being poisoned. So just wanted to remind you again that you're not that far from those tailing piles. So HudBay wants to clear the way for dumping their waste. And skip over that. So here's a map again of Corona de Tucson, and they own all this. Here's that F parcel down here, so they own all of this, and this is still state land, and this is still state land. So they want to be able to send their pipeline like this in here, so they can dump all their tailings here. And so one of the things that we've been doing is fighting really hard and orchestrating, citizens to contact the governor and the head of the state land department so that they don't auction these. HudBay has asked for those state land parcels to be auctioned so that they can buy them at auction. So far, we've held that off for the moment. It looked like they were maybe going to be auctioned months ago. At the moment, still they haven't been, and it's really because folks like you have been hammering them with letters and phone calls saying, don't auction those. That's just another shot of these two parcels that they would like to get. So I wanted to come to the lawsuit that we're involved in right now against the Arizona State Land Department. So remember, HudBay's goal is to transport these tailings to where they can dump them. If they can't transport the tailings and dump them, they can only do a very limited amount of mining, because you dig out, you produce the tailings, and then where are you going to put them? Well, so this is sort of the area that they're going to be producing these. And then they want to send the tailings by a pipeline here to get them up to this F parcel that we were just looking at. So what happened was, okay, this is a little nerdy. I'll try to make this really simple. This yellow is BLM land. If they go across BLM land, that triggers something called the National Environmental Policy Act, and then they have to do an environmental impact statement that slows down their project maybe for several years and costs a lot of money. So they want to stay off the federal land. So what did they do? They went to the state land department